Oregon escapes another one, Zooch. They escape again. And, watching that team in person, it it almost is like Boise and Oregon are two very similar teams in the fact that they do some things extremely well and some things they do at a below average level that is going to be a detriment to their team at some point. And
Oh yeah,
watching Oregon's O line, and Boise's D line is not the worst, but certainly by any means not the best in the country. In fact, they are probably. What would you say Boise's D line is about as average as you can get? I mean, they have their moments, but about as average as you can get. And they had
yeah,
five
they're not.
sacks. They gave up
Yeah,
5 sacks. It was incredible, but they escape again. But they continue to drop in the rankings, but they escape again.
hey, I mean, a win's a win, especially if you're a team like that. I don't think that's the case for like maybe us, but maybe Liberty. Like a win's not a win. Like barely beating New Mexico State's not gonna look
Sheesh.
great probably at the end of the year. But yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, I was able to. It's. I think you'll agree. It's a little different watching a game in person than it is at home. Like at home, you see
Hmm.
like little things, and I noticed with Oregon offensive line is they got to fix that because they could have had. I still think they could have pretty much scored on every drive. They just couldn't. They
They
got
they
into
they
a
they
few
could not
third and
defend.
15s.
And for the most part, Boise, they were mixing in a couple blitzes, but it wasn't a lot of jailhouse blitzes. Oregon. If you're an Oregon fan, you have one thing to kind of rest your hat on is that the explosivity on the defensive end, special teams end, and offensive end still play into effect. They have playmakers all over the field. Now for Boise, on one end, I feel like, of course, what they did well was just run the ball with Ashton Genty, but we knew that going in. But Boise State, what eats you up is that two things, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on one of them. The one that you're not going to correct me is special teams is a problem. It's been a problem for 3 years at Boise State. For the people who don't watch Boise State winning week in and week out, it has been a problem for 3 years. They have gone through multiple coordinators. Zuch, I'm gonna pose a question to you. At some point, is it just a lack of depth in not putting people in the right positions on special teams rather than a scheme? Or do you think it is the scheme?
I think probably a little of both. And this might be. I don't think it's a hot take. I kind of came out of that a little more worried about Boise than I am Oregon that game, even though it was close. Because I was like I said, I watched it at home, and I was like taking notes or whatever for the podcast. And do you have like just take a guess at what our longest drive was in the second half? Our longest
Minutes
offensive
wise or yards wise?
yards wise.
I'm gonna guess it was that 35, 40 yarder off the fumble, right? Like 30 yards, 40 yards.
So the longest was the long Genty run, the 70-yard
Yeah. Okay.
Genty run. We had 8 total drives in the second half. We got 70 yards on that one drive. We had 80
Yeah.
yards on the other 7 drives.
That's
So
not
I
good.
think it's not good. And like I know a lot of Boise fans are like, "Oh, we should have won. We should have won." You allowed 2 special teams touchdowns. You the big plays are still a problem. Like that, I mean, I think every one of Oregon's touchdowns was like 30 yards or more, except Dylan
Yeah.
Gabriel had the one read option, but that was off of like a 70-yard
Yeah.
pass to like the 3-yard line. So those are things, and I understand that there's not going to be a team as good as Oregon, most likely that Boise State plays the rest of the. I mean, factually, basically. But those are things that have hung around, like you said, the special teams has been a yearly thing now. The secondary has been, I mean, towards the end of the game, I don't remember. I think they ended up punting it, but Dylan Gabriel missed 2 touchdown passes
Yeah. No, I
on
was just gonna bring that up.
one of their
To
drives, and
Yeah.
the passing for Boise State, we all know Genty's going to be great, obviously. passing has to improve, defense
Mhm.
has to improve, special teams has to improve. Ginty is not gonna be enough to make you finish 11-1. He's just not. He's great, gonna be a high draft pick, all that stuff. But you're going to have a game or a couple games where he's kinda gonna get shut. I mean, it's gonna happen. I know Boise State fans think, "Oh, like, he's gonna run over most people in the Mountain West." I agree, but you do not
But there
deserve to
is gonna
be
be that
a
one
top 10
game.
team if you allow 2 teams touchdowns, complete, like, 40 something percent of your passes,
Mhm.
and allow 4 or 5 touchdowns of basically over 30. Like,
Yeah.
that's what annoyed me about the game is I did not think Boise State played especially well. They had moments, but you are not gonna win every game playing
100%.
great in moments. You're still allowed. I mean, you allowed, granted, 2 of them were special teams touchdowns, and yeah, they were great in the run game. I think we had over, like, 225 yards, something like that, but that stuff has to improve or you're going to see
Yeah.
those losses you have over the past few years. And for Oregon, you're not going to have those big plays that they had the other night against Ohio State or, I mean, USC's defense looks a lot better this year. So USC, like, they're going to play much, much tougher defenses than Boise State. So they have a little more wiggle room as to where, like, they could probably have 2 losses and they're in the playoff. But I mean, yeah, I don't know
No,
what's going on
it's
with their
they
line. 7
that
sacks in 2
that
games
that
isn't
I would
great.
be very afraid of that Big Ten schedule. Yeah, the last thing I'll say about this game is that the Maddox Madsen situation, not a problem yet. If you see that stat line when he plays a Mountain West school and God forbid they lose, even with Genty over 100 yards and a couple touchdowns, there are going to be rumblings. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I think when I watch Maddox play in person, it's he makes every right decision. It's just some sometimes the play is not made, whether the ball is a smidgen off or whether the receiver just doesn't come down with the catch. But it's not. I mean, besides the one we always call it the one Maddox play a game when he almost threw the pick on the screen pass, but
Yeah,
that's just what it
that's
is.
almost a
There's the
pick
one,
6.
yeah, the one Maddox play a game, but that's just what happens. I didn't feel like his decision making was bad. It's the execution, and Oregon is a good team. But so if you're Oregon, Big Ten schedule, you got to get things going, and for Boise State, you got to stop the big plays, or you're gonna blow a game and blow your playoff
You
chances.
will, and it's
Uh,
just you should. I'm not saying don't be happy that that game went a lot better than games against top 10 opponents have for BSU in quite a few years. I'm not saying that that's untrue, but a lot of the issues that we've seen over the past few years were still there the other night, and you are not gonna go 11-1 with that like, it's just not gonna happen. We see it every year with teams, like, they'll be talking about I don't know, like LSU last year, right?
mhm.
Perfect example. Heisman Trophy winner on their team.
Nine and
Couldn't
three.
stop a nosebleed. Like,
Yeah.
that's just you're not like there's gonna be games where you get stopped more than the other team gets stopped, and
Mhm.
gotta improve it.